Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Come to you today with another piece of information to help solidify everything back together. Show you where the true foundation is, just like I've been saying. So pay attention and take some notes, particularly the link when I post it. So feel free, everybody that's here already, go ahead and hit that share button, share this video. We're going to talk about the most important trust that they believe in on this planet. And I've been telling people for a long time it's a postal trust. It's the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union that indentures and supports all other constitutions of the other nations that are subject and indentured in that agreement through the UN. Both the Peace Treaty of Berne and the Law of Nations, and those nations are indentured through the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union, and then have sub-treaties, 560 some sub-treaties under that through Her Majesty's UCC. A lot of people are familiar with that term, UCC. That's an acronym. In this case, it is not the Uniform Commercial Code. It is the Uniform Customs Code. Her Majesty's Uniform Customs Code. These are the customs laws at the borders, just like at law and in law. They are at the borders of every nation indentured through that Constitution. That constitution of that nation is still subject to the postal constitution. Therefore, it is still the Postal Service that has ultimate authority over the Coast Guard, Customs Bureau, things like that. It's a Customs Bureau. So we have to think about this stuff. And like I've been explaining in my recent task with PayPal, we finally got someone to recognize that private postal routing. Okay? And all I had to do was express it. It's freedom of transit guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union. And that is the first article of the Universal Postal Union's Constitution, which all the other nations, like I said, that are involved in that UN agreement for the Treaty of Berne and the Law of Nations under the UCC, Her Majesty's Customs Codes, apply through that indenture of the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union to then place their constitution, their national constitution, in a trust form for that country's records, that country's history. And that Constitution of the United States starts out with to form a more perfect union. Both that and the Union, the Constitution of Universal Postal Union, those are labor unions. This comes to Titus 3:8 in King James Version of the Bible, wherein it's faithful that so long as you do the good works unto the word of God, those are the works that are profitable unto men. Anything in that Constitution of the Universal Postal Union that's indentured through a commercial route is therefore indenturing that as the uniform to become part of that uniform customs codes. And therefore it's an underwriting. It's an insurance program. This is the marine insurance, the inland marine insurance, and then the common carrier insurance known as commercial insurance for interstate transportations. And that's the transportation Title 49, wherein you have the description of various different things, but the motor vehicle operator's lease is in the tax code. Why do you think the Postal Service doesn't have license plates? And what is it you have to do to send something through or into the mails? You have to buy a postal stamp. And you do that with the nation's internal currency. Now, if you go to a post office and you want to buy a $1 stamp, you can use a ruble in $1 form. And the Postal Service is the international monetary exchange. Through, again, that indenture with the Treaty of Bern, wherein the Swiss franc puts out the weights and measures for those scales that they use. Give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Give unto our Father what belongs to our Father. Can you put me on a scale and tell me how much it's going to cost to mail me? Or are you going to try to tell me I'm required to have a passport when in fact King James Version of the Bible says Psalms 121 verse 8, the Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. And that, I believe, is concurrent, congruent, and conclusively in agreement with freedom of transit is guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union. That's an expression of their trust in congruence with the trust. The trust. So let's take a look at this. The real trust as opposed to the post office. Global Postal Trust Services under the Universal Postal Union. You see how that reads? The post office. Global Postal Trust Services under the Universal Postal Union. Postal Trust Services as opposed to goods being a labor source or labor resource. Okay? And I like this because this one here, the format is very easy to read. You notice it's got nice blue, easy background, big lettering. I haven't gone all the way into it because I really don't need to go much farther than I already have to explain what I'm going to explain. And again, like I said, I'm going to post the link. And it's not giving me, there it is. And so there's the link in the comments section on Facebook, guys. So there's that. And then as we go back, like I said, it's the Postal Trust Services. They're providing specifically services, okay, not goods, okay? And it's Martin Rowe, ROEM, at postoffice.co. I believe that to be like Customs Office, United Kingdom. Universal Postal Union Electronic Services. See, we've gone from the snail mail to an electronic service. Like I said, it's all postal roads and routes. Every routing, every road is postal. If you are going to post numbers and other identifiers, then it is your post. It is your work. You're the one doing the work to provide that posting. Okay? But we are not providing a service. The service is provided so we can post. That's what this service is about. It's a virtual service to provide an understanding of current postal joint, electronic commerce, and trust service initiatives. And what I want to point out here, folks, is like I've been saying for a long time, we get involved in these contracts and stuff, and everybody thinks they need to learn contract terms and conditions in order just to enforce that contract. No, you can learn the contract terms and conditions so you know how it's being enforced to rebut it, because you can have a superior and primary element of being the beneficiary of the trust. being able to use that freedom of transit is guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union by proving that it is the underwriting of the scriptures. Rule 803 says exception to the rule of hearsay. Number 2 says excited utterances. So hallelujah for scriptures, because they are the most ancient documents. And they speak of something greater, where this postal union gets their indenture trust form here to provide that same service. And that is the freedom of speech, to be able to press a record and to make sure that somebody else isn't pressing a false record. We're not supposed to be lying about our brothers. So when somebody places even the little white lie, we can and should speak up. Speak up. Again, we don't have to write anything down. All we have to do is express the trust. Okay? So let's continue on. Developed by individual post offices. What are individual post offices? Individual post offices are post offices at the end of the line, the last mile, just like a railroad stop. A rail is like a bar. And there's a rule that you can't go over it. You can't go past it. Rule roads are the written documents known as rules that guide you along the routes. Okay? Facilitated and supported by the UPU, Universal Postal Union, the post office. Why current services and business issues. Issues is the origination. Who issued it? Who posted it? Okay? And when we're talking about origination, we're talking about the origin. It's not of the same like kind. It came from a different route. It came from outside their route. As we go on, it's market share. It enters into a market share. If you're going to share in that market, make sure it's free so they can't place liability. I provide free education. Nothing more. Again, like I said, they're talking about the letter mail that takes days to get from point to point, whereas hybrid electronic mail origins can reach from point to point within seconds. It is, in fact, a matter of time. They are trying to help you make efficient use of your time. I'm trying to help show you how to do that most effectively. Courier services. They are a courier service. They are posting your post via that trust. And that parcel, that share, because it's part of this environment, whether it be commercial or otherwise, it is the same electronic environment. And the parcel are the digital data elements that they track and trace back and forth to its origin and its final destination. Example postal electronic services strategies. Business model examples for members. Remember, this is a business model, not a private model, which means it doesn't apply to private people. None of this down here is going to apply to private people. This is all we have to assert. We're not entering into financial services. The financial services were already taken care of and recorded through PayPal, who has a private routing and a private agreement now that this is a private foundation, and the name and number refer to the beneficiary record per the intent of the user who entered and issued that information. It was my issue. I am the originator. PayPal doesn't have the ability to change that intent any way, shape, or form. Okay? Now, Sweden, your Nordic bloc. Messages, goods, and payments enter into a circle. Now, if it's only going in as a message and there are no goods or payments, the full integration of the messaging will show that the financial transactions and logistics fulfill the immediate delivery and distribution to the final destination without any goods or payment interferences. Because, like I said, the payment has already been paid. There is no transfer of goods. It's matter-of-factly a transfer of assets. Whether they be intellectual goods, or intellectual assets, or physical assets, tangible or intangible. Our common business context, the text that they use is a parlance. It is a different grammar. End-to-end communication, distribution, and electronic commerce. Involvement in between. End-to-end is point of origin to final destination. And this is in 19 CFR 149.3. We're going to find a lot of good information that I'm talking about in this one code. Okay? This is the customs code. And again, like I said, customs is inferior to the Postal Service. This is in fact a judicial determination. The data elements make a judicial determination, and through customs they're making a false declaration, or there's no declaration and they're making a false entry. That entry is being entered for immediate entry into transportation rather than immediate delivery to final destination. And this is what the problem is. Shipments intended to be entered into the United States. The United States is Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. is a consortium of documentation that belongs to the corporate entity. Nothing more. It has no judicial element. It's congressional documentation. And like I explained in my video yesterday, the Postal Service, through ex parte communications, because they are the regulatory origin of communications, whether they be public or private, is the one that makes the judicial determination for the full faith and credit of the United States for legal tender of all debts, public and private. Obligations and other securities of the United States are judicial elements of the Postal Service as public offerings in their postings in an electronic route regulated by the Postal Service. Okay? In here, it says the seller, the buyer, and the ship to party, end to end, ship to party. So wherever it reaches the customs point, and as it reaches import into the United States, from that ship to the party, it's entered into the United States. Now I ask, if American Ford Motor Company produces a American automobile and it is not shipped but is rather transported from point A to point B within the very same special maritime and territorial jurisdiction, was it ever entered into the United States, or was it manufactured in the United States? Man, you fact. Are the facts accurate? They are not. Because somewhere somebody is able to give a widely recognized, commercially accepted identification number for this party may be provided in lieu of the name and address. And as I explained in my video yesterday or the day before, when we apply for the SS5, it's an automatic enrollment for dual eligibility. The dual eligibility is the ability to be able to use a number in lieu of the name and address, or use the name and address in lieu of the number. If we're using the number or the name and address in lieu of the name and address, we're qualified as a Medicare qualified government employee in the process of finishing or going through Medicaid acceptances as we are training for the eligibility to become a federal officer officially on the record. In other words, we're operating without a factual oath as a resident in hopes of one day of becoming a president. Now, like I said, the buyer and the ship to party can also use the same widely recognized number in lieu of the name and address. Now, here we talk about the country of origin, country of manufacture, production, or growth of article. This is my article that I post, and it's enumerated on different pages through various different ways, through different titled pages. Okay? All these are different pages. It's all under one title of my first article, wordwisewarrior.art. This is a title under that article. It's an underwriting, another underwriting, another underwriting. It's underwritten by this. This is the private routing. All numbers are inside of it. Notice there's no number there. Notice no numbers. We only get to the numbers when we use the scriptures and their ordinances and codes. And so I've even placed my own code. And it is superior to that which is underwritten in English, which is a copy in English of what is up here. And it immediately describes the trust. So let's go back. And it's in growth. It is a private foundation not yet organized, based upon the import laws, rules, and regulations of the United States. This is in conflict because, as I said, this is outside of the United States. This is an international World Wide Web postal route. And despite the fact that it says not secure, comprehend, that's telling you there's no securities on this. There's no commerce on this. It operates under the automatic cybersecurity laws instituted through the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union for protection of freedom of transit throughout the entire Union. So let's go back. Commodity HTS-US number. Harmonized tax. Harmonized tariff, which is the same thing, tax. It's just synonymous. Schedule. In other words, it's got to have a time, date, and day and all that. It's got to have a schedule. It's got to have something in the future and something in the past. It's got to relate to something other than now. What is true now of the United States? Again, there's no number of the United States there. Okay? It's not enumerated under the United States. The United States itself is a title that is then only able to pose its codes by enumerating them. The HTS-US number must be provided to the 6-digit level. The HTS-US number may be provided up to the 10-digit level. Remember that Social Security card and that number on the back. It's got a letter followed by 8 numbers. You convert that letter to its numerical equivalent, and you've now got a 10-digit number, unless it's J, K, or L. And then it's an 11-digit number, but it surpasses because then it's still readable. This element can only be used for entry purposes if it is provided at the 10-digit level. Okay? That number shows that it's already been entered. Is that number valid for its entry? Does it come with a valid declaration, handwritten statement signed in wet ink, validating its entry for commercial purposes? Or greater by the importer of record. So like I said, if it's 11 digits, it's still composed of an importer of a record. Or it's licensed customs broker, not postal office. Postal member. Business model examples for members. So let's go to the virtual mailbox. Special maritime territorial jurisdiction, folks. In visual, they tell you, pay attention. First, it starts with integration by the user, telling you you are not within their jurisdiction until you integrate certain things. The sender integrates by letter or fax. I'm going to tell you no. As I've said before, and I'm sure the UPU and its members will agree. In fact, this could be better qualified by post/letter/fax. Okay? So I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it could be improved to help clarification that when you are posting something, you are the originator. You are the one making the post. You are the issuer of that post. Whether it be in letter form, fax form, or just simple communication, my yay is my yay. Voicemail message, telephone call, email, paging. These are all your electronic forms of sending things. Same thing here, email, post, letter, email, letter or post. Okay, letter would be entering into the mails. Post would be using the mails for freedom of transit throughout the entire territory of the Union. Public. Everybody can see it. Okay, so your sender has to know this point and what their intent is. And they're all international security. They all have an international security number. But notice, this one here would be operating through BraveNet, because that's who I got the site through, as well as PayPal, because that's the service that I use to pay. Okay? So once you, as a receiver or sender, and notice on the receiver side, they've got terminal, where you got a web TV, printer, again a fax or a pager, letters, telephone, terminal, kiosk, that would be a laptop, cell phone. And yes, I said cell phone. Mine is a terminal, not a cell phone, because I even though it was labeled as a cell phone, I do not use it as a cell phone. I've never hooked up the phone services. I use it for the other services besides the cell phone. We can do this the same thing, establishing oneself as a bank. You can technically establish yourself as a bank without providing any bank services except the educational services of how to conduct the banking affairs. Free education even. Or you can sell that education as a service. I prefer to do it freely. I will teach you about banking. I will teach you about taxing. I will teach you about customs. I will teach you about the postal system. I will teach you how to add 1 + 1 = 2. I will teach you how to add 5 + 5 and it equals 9. Think about that one. Okay, so now once you enter into this outer border, again, the user exterior, you still, at this point, you are your own jurisdiction. Then you take advantage of a postal route for everything that you post, whether it be a letter, fax, voicemail, telephone call, email, or paging, through the telephone, through a laptop, whether you're receiving all those things. At that point, it's in a postal route. Within that postal route, you have other services that are indentured through that Constitution of the Universal Postal Union, through their national constitution, through the commercial laws as public trustees, to provide these services just like the Postal Service. See, these are all postal services that are taken over as international or internally as national services. But you can take advantage of them from here rather than skipping over this. Let everybody recognize this right here. You do not enter in here. It's going all the way around, and everybody has the ability to get it from here. You do not have to go all the way in to the voice commerce system. You do not have to go all the way into the video commerce system. You do not have to go all the way into the text commerce system. See, I bought the phone and I can text back and forth from this phone. I can use this phone for Facebook and drop the links and everything. I can use a laptop the same way. Laptop, I'm using somebody else's Wi-Fi. Same with the phone. I'm just using somebody else's Wi-Fi. And like I said, again, in another video, the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, has a contract with the Postal Service for all of these electronic communications just as well. So those routing numbers are in accordance with the FCC user number on all devices, on all of these electronic devices. The FCC has a user number. Now, that user number is whether it's a private foundation using it, and the FCC will tell you so from its point of origin. And the Postal Service will agree, yes. So there's your come by 2 or 3 witnesses. I am the one presenting the information to the 2 people that will go forth as 2 witnesses in their system, saying that this third guy, we have 3 against all of you, we have 3 witnesses. Same with the BraveNet and PayPal setup for the WordWise. I have BraveNet saying they have a routing setup that will not let them take information from this point of origin because this is a non-commercial venue. I have PayPal agreeing that I used a PayPal card that uses private bank routing and it was not a merchant number. There is no liability to be placed on that payment for this, the same individual man, living soul that's operating this site, and the card that used that card with this site, BraveNet, to put it up here because BraveNet holds the security. PayPal, the Postal Service, the FCC, the Treaty of Berne, even the Queen, Her Majesty, holds liability on that because I've not entered into their jurisdictions. And if she wants to say that one of her nations can push a tax liability under the Uniform Customs Codes in violation of the law of nations with somebody that's involved with the Treaty of Berne and the first article of the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union because he has adopted it. Declaration of Right to Peace, UN General Assembly. I adopted that. Constitution of Universal Postal Union Preamble with a view to developing communications between peoples by the efficient operation of the postal services and to contributing to the attainment of the noble aims of international collaboration in the cultural, social, and economic fields. The plenipotentiaries of the governments of the contracting countries have subject to ratification. They are subjects. Okay? Telling you, they're subjects somewhere, aren't they? Okay? What are they subject to? Subject to ratification of this document. So they're subject to the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union, indenturing both the Treaty of Berne and the Law of Nations before you get to the Her Majesty's Uniform Customs Codes. Adopted this Constitution. This is on my adoptions page, and I adopted this Constitution. And the first article of that Constitution is the freedom of transit is guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union. I am, in fact, part of the Peace Corps without being recognized or named. Since 1983, the Peace Corps has partnered with the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. They have to cooperate in international development of private foundations, folks, through the Small Project Assistance SPA program. I love it. Sounds nice and healthy. To build capacity and empower local communities to lead in their own development. To lead in their own development, leaving all of these people out of the development and only using the services as beneficiaries by always providing a private route for the end user at the last mile, end of the line, third party beneficiary. Email, private email. Everything extends from that. And it covers all postal roads and routes. This is a public offering to follow a hybrid email. Provides network, security, directory, and infrastructure by providing it yourself. Learn how to network. Learn what you need for security. It's not them. It's privacy, your own ability to provide the routing of your networking. In all cases, you get to direct them. Title 50 U.S. Code 4305 for full acquittance and discharge, a directive given for full acquittance and discharge, transferring the interest to the United States, to and on and for the account of the United States, so that no person shall be held liable in any court because those courts are United States courts. We don't enter into those courts. That's their infrastructure for their services that they are backing, which is only backed by the Swiss franc of the Treaty of Berne, indentured through, again, the Universal Postal Union's Constitution, superior to the Constitution of the United States, where in its preamble says to form a more perfect union, where in the preamble here says with a view to developing communications, which is pertinent to forming a more perfect union. Without developing communications, you can't help grow the union. So let's help grow the union in what is true by dismissing the fallacy that they are going to ignore us and quit filing shit in their system and learn how to communicate through your own developments. I hope you guys are paying attention. I have an opportunity through one of the acquaintances I have to maybe possibly speak with the FBI this next week, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I get to pull out that financial index. I get to pull out the birth record change name control. I get to show them how I asserted that I know how the routing system works. And that now all I need to do is get everybody to recognize it, including Homeland Security redress. And the main principal purpose of that is the First Amendment, petition the redress of the government for grievances. And I have a definite grievance with 93 cases on the record that had misdescriptions that I was supposedly operating as a firm without a board of directors, without my knowledge. Had I known that, I would have never given a name and address. I'd have given the number in lieu of the name and address. And now I'm giving that private security name, birth record change, name control. You don't have any control over the Keith Orland Little faith-based union. Therefore, the name that you control is Keith Orland Little, and that is associated with a number. The name and number identify the record. Now, the name and number that is used to identify a record is a Social Security number, and therefore it identifies the Social Security record of the beneficiary, and that is in the custody and holdings of the Social Security Administration. So they hold the liability as well, and I am merely the benefactor, the man, the living soul, placing the facts on the record, supplemental to anybody else's mutual mistakes and accidents, causing a consistent or continuous and repeated conditions, placing public liabilities on that record. Let's be done with all of those accidents and make sure that our discretion is now heretofore recognized as no other way. This route and no public liabilities. Simple as that. Help Social Security Administration put down their foot. We're holding this record, and no more public liabilities are going to be placed on this record. In doing so, you have Title 49 of the U.S. Code, expenses incidental to transfer of title to the agency. So now you can take all your instruments, your bank cards, your certificate of title, your driver's license, your business licenses, Social Security card, sign them all, send them all back to the Social Security Administration, the DMV, the Department of Commerce, whoever you need to send them back to, and tell them that the expenses are incidental to them as the agency for closing the account. You're going to close all those accounts. And then in that, you're going to issue a directive under 50 USC 4305 to transfer the interest to the United States, to, on, and for the account of the United States. And you're going to issue this under a directive of expenses incidental to the transfer of title to the United States. Again, under 50 USC 4305, notifying them that all of these securities need to be transferred, titles need to be transferred to the United States for settlement and clearing of all accounts, making all parties whole, so no person shall be held liable in any court. Establishing the balance of the account so that all remainder credits can then be transferred with expenses incidental to transfer of title to the Postal Service through a merger under the new name. Placing those credits on an open-end credit account in the master trust established through Postal 1 in the international jurisdiction, establishing that you provide your own judicial directives. You have a fidelity bond with the Postal Service based on that expenses incidental to the title transfer in a merger under a new name. Dismissing their bankrupt BS because of that judicial element. They, as a bankrupt corporation, they can't. Not only can they not actually own anything known as assets, They can't actually put forth any judicial discretions. Why is that? Well, if we think about this reasonably and logically, if they're considered bankrupt, then there's a contract being posed for that consideration, showing that there's equal consideration, showing that somebody else has a place in making that determination that they're bankrupt, and they're subject to them in agreeing that they're bankrupt by placing the fact that they're bankrupt on the record. And that's why they use the martial law to enforce the collection of public taxes and revenues. Article 10 of the Libre Code. The martial law chiefly affects the police and the collection of public taxes and revenues for the Army's use, its efficiency, and its operations. And those are field operations. See, that resident is an outside salesman of the corporate United States operating in the fields of martial law, and therefore has to have certain protections in order. This is in the U.S. Code as well as international protection of persons. Article 53 of the Libre Code talks about the voluntary prisoners of war. If they voluntarily choose to remain behind with their captive prisoners of war, they can voluntarily do so, and they can do that by licensures. That license is proving that you're a voluntary prisoner of war, and you didn't in fact take an oath under that military code to be part of the military service, and you didn't in fact take an actual oath. It's only being presumed because you're a dumb volunteer of the war. You're one of Hitler's willing executioners because you're just doing your job because that's the only thing you know how to do. You don't know how to express anything else. So please come out of her. I'm asking you. We do that by asking in Christ's name for the word of our Father. There's no other way. You can only do it through Christ. And the only way to express that is by acting like Christ. You have to walk in Christ. Matthew, when Christ walked by the tax collector's booth and called out to Matthew, Matthew had already been piqued in curiosity by listening to the Pharisees and stuff, and coming from a Jewish family and stuff, and so he was kind of in turmoil himself already, and that curiosity was piqued, and so he was learning how to come out of his job. I'm just doing my job. He had an actual internal curiosity for something better. Even while he was a Jew, even while he was a tax collector, things that other people named him, he himself had a thought, a concept of something better. And that is what drove him. That was his commercial drive, even outside the commerce. And so when Jesus walked by and he hollered out to Matthew and said, "Matthew, come follow me." For some reason, Matthew all of a sudden said okay and decided to drop everything he was doing and go follow Jesus. And in this, what happened was he calculated the rest of the books for the day and took out his per diem. Because at that time, even at that time, just like today, it's martial law. And he was, in fact, working for the military as a contractor, a private contractor at that, working as a tax collector. He was one of the police force before they actually started separating into smaller and smaller groups. And some of them just sat on what they call councils, city councils. And those city councils wrote up their little babbling contracts to have some nice guy walking around with a badge posing as the police so he could then collect that revenue for the tax collector, because people were no longer just willingly walking up to the tax collector. So now we see it's just an extension of the tax collection. So again, Matthew decided, even at the highest rank thought of at that time as a tax collector for Caesar, for the kingdom of Rome, he just up and walked away. Now this military officer went back to the Roman pontiff, and he says, "I have to find a new collector. What do you call him? A data collector or something. for District 13. Even back then, they called him District 13. At least that's what it's portrayed as. I can't say that, but and the emperor looks at him and says, "Well, why'd you let him go?" When he explained to him that he quit. Why do you need to find somebody for District 13? Well, he quit. Well, why'd you let him go? Well, he was a private contractor, and we have no recourse. We have no recourse. They can't go out and around it. They can't find any way around it. They're estoppeled because he went on his own path, his own course. And this is what we've got to start learning how to do, folks. We have to go on our own course by following somebody else that might be able to make things better. Because if you're not helping making things better because you're just sitting there doing your job and you're sitting there watching the boob tube on that nice plush couch, stuffing your face full of the chips and drinking down that poison soda, I feel sorry for you. I do. But at the same time, like I said before, I don't care whether you love me or not. I don't care whether you think of how I think about other people and the way they do things. If you truly want to make your life better, listen to me and know that I'm saying it because I love you. And I don't give a rat's ass whether you don't like what I'm saying or not. My duty is to love you. And therefore, I'm supposed to pose what I see as the ultimate truth, and I'm trying to teach you how to set up your own private routing number by using your own private wording, by taking them out of their jurisdiction and showing them that you are, in fact, in all cases, the original source. Without you being able to post it first, it would never have been posted. And that's what's truly custom. Let your yea be your yea and your nay be your nay, and every man would recognize that as reason and logic. It's natural sense. Every man knows that you really don't have control over somebody else. Yet because somebody gives you a badge, you somehow seem to think now all of a sudden you do because there's more than one of you. Again, I say come by 2 or 3 witnesses. I have many witnesses now. I can't wait to talk to the FBI. Federal Bureau of Investigations. I get to help point out to him that his authority comes from the Director General of the International Bureau under the very Constitution of the Universal Postal Union for all of the information that he's looking for that will match the criminal record used through the formatted by the use of the Interstate Identification Index. Interstate Identification Index. This is all off the top of my head, folks. I will run these people in circles and they will always see. It always comes back to your word if you know it. So please start paying attention. I'm not posing any process, UCC, SPC, 1099s, affidavits. Though we talk about affidavits, and it's important, again, that affidavit is in respect of my yea is my yea, my nay is my nay. So, again, it is to that, but I'm trying to show you something higher, being able to express it without defining it through little scratch marks on paper. It's already written. Put it in the electronic form. It's already in the public domain. Pull it from a public domain, post it in your private domain, and say, na 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 na. Get rid of all the fear. I had the neighbor come get me today because he wanted to go get a car. Some guy he's actually got his own company trade name and everything, and he's got the trade name on the title, and he's got the documentation notifying the registration of the trade name, and this dumb Yahoo's got his car because one of his partners took it to him for mechanic work, and then he couldn't handle it, and his partner ended up in jail. And now the guy doesn't want to give him the company car, trying to say he's going to wait for this guy to come out of prison. Really? Let's go talk to these guys. So we went over there, and of course the police are over there, and he's trying to assert his jurisdiction. I'm listen, dude. He's some young guy, and he got real offended real quick. I said, listen, this road we're standing on is known as a Postal Road. You better know who you really get your authority from and why they drive around without a license. You want to sit there and tell me I have to subject myself to any identification or license to talk to you? You better think again about that tampering with a witness. Yeah. You want to tell me I got to enter certain data elements, or that you can't allow me to enter certain data elements because I won't give you identification? You better learn, boy. You better learn. I don't play games with knowledge. I'm going to express it to you. I'm going to let you know whether you're wearing a badge, whether you sit on a city council, or whether you're sitting there on a couch watching somebody else's comedic or dramatic life on some boob tube. I'm going to do my best to communicate directly to you. So again, I hope you're paying attention. I'm done for today. As you see, I already got my PayPal link posted. Please be sure to hit that and share. I hope everybody comprehends. You need to start setting up your own private emails. And you do this by setting up your own private site, by indenturing the host of the .coms. You get a host, a third-party intervener between the Postal Service Trust, who's indentured as a trustee in that trust, and you take advantage of it as a beneficiary by providing a private .com domain extension, not within the commercial realm. You exit that commercial realm right there through the programming, and the international cybersecurity will take care of it already. It's programmed. So when somebody like PayPal wants to come in and put a public liability on that record, they can't do it. And they understand that. Catherine was understanding that I was willing to go to the International Bank of Settlements, because that is in fact the Universal Postal Union. That's the labor union that poses all the judicial elements throughout the world for all the different nations through the weights and measures of the scales they use. So again, coin your words or purse your lips, folks. God bless. Remember, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. Have a great day.